updates that are happening all the time. Feels good. Anyway, I can't get my camera to work, so this is as good as it gets. All right, we're live. Yay. Well, welcome to the Coaching and Flourish podcast. I am your host, John Andrew Williams, and I am here with the other host, Raj Anderson. Welcome everyone to Coaching to Flourish podcast. Q&A.
Hi, everyone. Yes, welcome. So we've got 3 questions. I think for our regular listeners, they probably know how it works. But if you've not joined us before, we normally get sent a few different questions. And we've got 3 questions today, and hopefully we'll be able to get through them all. But I'll just start with the first one, John, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some tips that you might share in cultivating a healthy mindset?
Well, one, it presupposes that I have one, which sometimes I wonder the amount of stress and pressure I put on myself, how healthy that is or not. I think from a bird's eye view, it's what I've seen, like at my best, like when I operate at my best, I'm exercising and drinking water. And I think that our culture and society pushes a lot of because so much what we do is virtual now. So much what we do is the work that we do is, mental, emotional work. It's not necessarily physical work, but sometimes we forget that we are bodies as well. And I think that for me, I know that when I'm exercising and when I'm drinking water and getting sleep, doing all of the things basically in the middle part of the Wellness 1.0 program, that's the foundation. That's the foundation for me. I find that most people have something like that. If you're stressed out and you're not exercising, well, you could try to find the source of the stress and try to solve that, or you could go out and go for a walk or a run or swim or bike or whatever, move and then come back to it. I often call exercise my secret sauce. It's my secret stuff that makes it all go. I'll stop there. I have more, but we'll start with that one. How about for you, Raj?
A few different ones. This did make me think of the habits tracker. I remember doing that myself in the 2.0. I remember how valuable I found that. So anyone who's in the 2.0 needs to check it out. And if you're not on the 2.0, maybe you need to join the 2.0. But anyway, so I think for me, cultivating a healthy mindset, one of the most important things for me is how I start my day. And if I'm thinking of it, breaking it up on a daily basis, if I don't start my day intentionally, it is just can be a roller coaster knock-on effect. So there's a few different things that I like to do. One, in our room at night, both my husband and I, we're not allowed any gadgets, phones, emails, nothing. They have to be plugged elsewhere. It's actually in the laundry room. So you would actively have to get out of bed and walk to it. So I don't like to have any emails or anything pinging, anything like that. I don't watch the news anyway. So I don't want to start my day where I pick up my phone and I'm looking at emails. So for me, cultivating that healthy mindset is really being intentional at the beginning of the day. Even if I only give myself 10 minutes, I do love to meditate, but for me, it's making my tea as a whole ritual. So I'll put some meditation music on, just get grounded and think about what I want to achieve from the day. So for me, it's those small things, I think, that add up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like now I have the added challenge of a 2.5-year-old. It's like, and the last week has been hard. He's waking up a ton, and then the cat, it's cold. The cat needs to come in. Like, oh my goodness. So I think that when it's interesting when things get stretched, I find that it becomes even more helpful to have the goal. Like, what is it we're really going after, and have that goal clarified. And this happy solstice, everyone, is a wonderful time to clarify what you want to achieve in the next revolution around the sun. And think about that, you have I feel like having a concrete idea of what I want to get towards, not just in my own life, but in the lives of other people, then in the world. Having that often helps at 2 a.m. when he wakes up and it's like, dude, really, we're doing this? Okay, we're up, and I'm not really good with no sleep. Some people are, I'm not. And so I think that element of um, having the goal, the outcome you want clearly outlined, provides a bedrock of emotion that combined for me of a really thinking of a growth mindset of not being too hard on myself if it's not perfect right away, but at the same time trying to take small steps every day towards that goal. That's the recipe for me. I wish I had the space to have, and this is my consistent morning routine, and this is my consistent evening routine. Oh, the days, those will come. But until that day, it's like the Wild West of day start and day end. So, but I've had to find those bedrocks. Yeah, and that's it for me right now.
What tips would you give other people who are looking for those bedrocks?
Oh, I find that clothing tends to be a structure for me, or a system where like you know what I mean? Where, especially when you work from home, sometimes you can just get used to sweatpants, and, if you don't have the video on, you can just show up in a t-shirt or whatever, it's those kind of things. I found too, I did this experiment, this is years ago, back when I was leading 20 hours of training a day, training a week, and it felt like training a day. And I would show up sometimes just a t-shirt, and then other times, wearing like a whole suit jacket and the whole thing. I found that it just was less energy if I showed up wearing a suit jacket and showed up more formal in these kind of things. And since then, I mean, it's more nuanced than that, but and everyone's getting used to what these webinars and what Zoom is and what Zoom isn't. But the idea of clothing a structure, both as a professional like workspace, I find is really useful. So for instance, like I'll wear jeans during work days and then switch to sweatpants. Like, when I'm home and like home, like I'll have like the home outfit. I'll have the heavy work outfit. Like I'll have the, and sometimes it's useful to think of it as costumes. Like I'm just stepping into my costume, and this is my work costume right now. And I'm, acting workspace. And I do think these are helpful structures for us as human beings. And it all starts to add together. You start adding in another structure for you to get yourself into that growth mindset. But what are your growth mindset socks? Stuff like that. So that's what I would offer anyone who has, let's say, your time is not necessarily your own, due to whatever factors, children, you're working another job while you're trying to build your coaching practice, or you're an advisor and anytime a student can come in, or you're an executive, or I mean, you name it. People have different challenges.
Yeah, I love that, structures and systems. And me, John, I love to schedule things. So one of the things I would share with others, you might find it useful, is I love to schedule in me time in my calendar, and calendar is color coded, so me time is green for growth. But I've scheduled it out for next year as well, because I'm like, got these goals, things are happening, but you know what, at least once a month I'm going to finish this time on a Friday afternoon, see if I can take myself for a treatment or a coffee or whatever, because otherwise I'll drop to the bottom of my list. So I actually put it in my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, should we move on, John?
Yeah. I think I feel like that's enough.
Yeah, we would probably talk about it the whole webinar, but so question 2, what has coaching taught you about people in general?
That's a great question. I think sometimes because I'm surrounded by coaches. Everyone basically I interact with, 90% of the people I interact with on a daily basis are coach trained or in coach training classes. I took a webinar once, or a workshop, like an intensive workshop once, that was not coaching based. It was just business based. And I was shocked at how poor the listening skills were of the other people in my cohort. And it wasn't, it was the kind of thing where I had to really stop myself and question, is this really the state of people? Like, is this? And it wasn't, this wasn't, an inexpensive program. This was a pretty significant cross section of what was happening in the business world. And it made me realize that in the business world, there are different pockets as well of people who are extremely adept and advanced in their listening skills. And then there are pockets that aren't. So I think there's an important distinction to make when people, like, I don't know, I guess buy into empathy and buy into growth mindset and buy into a lot of these coaching concepts. That's not a given. That's a choice that people are making, consciously making. And anyone can make this choice, whether in business or in the education space or wellness space or whatever space. This is a conscious choice to incorporate these concepts into their lives. And so when someone does that, I think what in that moment I understood, that's not an inconsequential choice. That could be a monumental, that could be a milestone, or a choice that people say, you know what, I'm really going to actively spend time cultivating my empathetic listening. That's huge. I'm going to actively cultivate a growth mindset. That's amazing. I'm going to actively look at my character traits, my strengths, and see how can I further apply my strengths every day, every week in my life. These are really big choices. So when people make these choices, whole new fields of opportunity open up for them. Growth, yes. Some pain, yes. But that's part of it. It's part of the deal. And what I found is when people make that choice, when they start to move into those spaces, whole new opportunities open up for them. Whole new internal resources are available to people that are on that path. And when you're on that path yourself, it does feel hard. There can be stress, there can be anxiety, there can be all of this stuff. But I don't think that that the other path of not choosing it, I think there's the same stressors, the same anxieties, like levels, but there's no I don't know where the mechanism is to get out of it. So I spent that course in that space tizzied. I don't know. I've like, how much do I, that's what I felt like in it, in the non-coaching world. In the coaching world, I feel like, yeah, like let's get down to business. Let's give each other useful feedback. Let's tap into that natural resourcefulness. And that's what I mean, having coached people for over a decade, listen to people are more resilient than they think they are, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be managing your own, just talking from clients that I've spoken to, or even myself when I first started this journey, judgments or expectations or assumptions, and where you are in your own growth journey, it's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody around you. I mean, you're fairly blessed, aren't you, John? Your wife is a coach, growth mindset, you're surrounded by phenomenal coaches, they're in your world and they get where you're at and having those conversations. I think about when I'm working with organizations as well, and especially if you're doing a diversity program, and often get asked a question of, well, this is all great, I'm working on myself, but what about those people over there? and they're still going back into the same culture. So sometimes there can be frustration for people when I'm working with them, or they're working on themselves and their kids and their spouse or their family or people around them are not in the same space that they're in. What guidance or tips would you give people in that place?
There was something that Laura Whitworth said when I was in a leadership program. She was one of the co-founders of the ICF back in 1995. One of the main figures in the start of the coaching field. And we had it was a 4-week, four intensive weeks spread out over 10 months. And she had cancer and she died between 3 and 4, retreat 3 and retreat 4. And we all knew, it was known, and it was sad, and she was powerful. And I felt very lucky to be in that space. She said after retreat 1, she didn't really like us. She says, as a group of people, we were horrible. And she wondered and she worried about the state of humanity. And I can see why. And sometimes when I think of my own journey through this, all the mistakes I've made, the conceptions I had to let go of, and all of the ideas of how value was created and all of that, I realized there is an element of humility as well, that I realized, like, I don't want to be that person that's just sitting there thinking I want to separate the person from the skill set. And I feel like that's a really valuable thing. And something Laura would say is that, look, it's not that they don't want to, it's that they don't know how. And that sticks, and so you separate the person from the skill set, and you think, okay, they don't know how. It doesn't mean it's not my responsibility to teach them, but it is also not my responsibility to attach all of those negative feelings that I might feel to the person. I can attach it to the skill set. That's a useful distinction. And by retreat 2 and 3, she ended up liking us more and more, but I could feel it from her. She was fierce. She is one of my favorite people. But yeah, Laura Whitworth was a force of nature, and she did not hold back in her feedback to us, and we loved her for it.
Such a powerful message there. I have to remind myself of that regularly. It's not my job to fix others, because then I'm in a place of ego as well. I joke with friends sometimes. They all know I'm a coach and we're hosting something and people are around, and I know I'm that person that's like a magnet that someone's going to come and sit next to and chat to, or there could be an outpouring of something. So I'll joke and say, I'm off duty. I'm off duty tonight. And it doesn't mean that I'm not being present or listening or holding space. But at the same time, it's not my responsibility. Everyone is on a journey themselves, aren't they? And everyone we meet is doing the best that they can from where they're at. Remembering that really helps me.
Yeah. And then I find that when I'm on my game, when I'm actively employing all of my energies towards a goal, the actions or non-actions or bias or whatever of other people, it doesn't affect me the same way. Like I don't get hooked in it. I still see it. I'm like, okay, it's there. It's not going to go away. But this is where having that empathetic motivation of this is what I want to create. Well, this is the mission. For me, it's what if every teacher were a trained life coach? Like that's it. Like it's simple. Like that's the idea. And how well am I doing that today? How well am I doing that this week? In this conversation with a neighbor, and I'm realizing, whoa, okay. Or, someone's throwing something out there. Does it serve for me to engage with that, or just see it let it go. You know what I mean? That's a useful, that outcome is it's a useful tool for your mental emotional space.
Thanks, John. Okay, I'm gonna segue us to the next question, which I think connects beautifully. How can life coaching improve your personal relationships?
I think it's cool to ask questions and to be more curious. There was a participant in one of my 2.0s, and she said that her grandma would always tell the same stories over and over again every holiday season. And everyone would just sit there and listen, nod their heads, and then count another time. So this is maybe the 17th time she's told the story. This participant decided, you know what, I am going to go level 2. And I'm going to not just listen to this story, I'm going to listen actively, empathetically to her. And then I'm going to keep asking questions. And as they're sitting there in this, this table, grandma's telling her story, everyone's nodding, going through it. And then she starts asking questions. And everyone at the table is like, oh, what are you doing? Why? What? We just spent 3 minutes listening to this for the 17th time. Are you, what? Grandma starts telling more of the story. She starts going more and more into it. And, different things are coming up. And every, in the participant, she comes back and says, that was amazing. Her eyes lit up, her energy lit up. She said, I never would have known that. I never would have got there if I hadn't actively tried to listen, actively, empathetically level 2. And then, months later, because, 2.0 is a distance, it came up again. So is she telling the same stories? She's not. Grandma didn't repeat the story again. Grandma was heard. She was witnessed. She was seen as a human being telling a story that was important to her. And not just that, but someone was actively listening and trying to go even more into the story. That I feel like is coaching at its best. It helps you connect with somebody on a deep, meaningful level that changes not only, your relationship with them, but it helps grandma get to different parts of the story, helps her remember different pieces of it and know that, yeah, someone's listening to me. They're not just nodding and saying, okay, how can I get out of this? They're actively connecting with me. That's priceless. And that is a skill that coaching offers.
And that makes me think about what I've learned about people in general when you're sharing that. I mean, ultimately, we all want the same thing, don't we? We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be acknowledged. And the more I work with people, I see that we're actually more alike than we are different. We have the same fears. And think about execs that I work with. Sometimes I get the question of, well, what's different for you when you're working with men than women? And actually the same kinds of things and themes come up with inner critic and inner dialogue and imposter syndrome and all of those things. And how many times at the end of even a coaching session, one of the takeaways, a person's like, it was so good for me to just express that or to be heard, someone holding the space for them. I'm just thinking about coaching skills for me. I mean, it's literally changed my life, not just having had coaching myself or coaching others. But I think about how much more patient I am, how much more I do listen. If I think about being present for my spouse, I mean, I ask him a question at the beginning of the day, what do you need from me today, honey? And just holding that space and being curious. It really enhanced my ability to be empathetic. But I think more importantly than anything was perspectives, being able to not just be in my own perspective with somebody else, for me to really think about, well, what might be going on for the other person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here's a fun game to play or design to do sometimes is, the closest people in your life. When you say, I love you, and they say, I love you too. It's pretty standard. But what happens when you design, instead of saying, I love you too, I'm going to say why. I'm going to ask a question, why? or what? Why? It's so silly. It's so silly because it's like, well, why? And then the other person, you're not like a mean, like, tell me why or give me something to make myself feel better. But it's amazing when you just try for a day. Try for a day and see what happens. It's, you have to design it, and it's not like, I'm asking why not to be egotistical or, build myself up or whatever. But it's just a lovely, try it for a day, see what happens. It's a lovely exercise. But it's that kind of curiosity. It's that kind of curiosity that helps you get deeper and more specific. And that's what coaching does. It's not like it's this magical profession that when you do it, you become like a superhuman. It helps you. It just boosts your listening skills maybe 30%. And then it helps you have structures so that when something comes up, you have a tool set or structure to deal with it, I think more quickly and efficiently. Moise and I met a friend in Portland who was not coach trained, but just naturally listened empathetically. And she was a magnet. She was like a friend magnet. You could just see it happen. And it was just remarkable to see her work. Like it was a wow every time. And some people naturally do this, and you probably, everyone has friends like this who are not formally trained, but maybe their parents did, or they just learned it, or they just do it naturally. I think that's amazing. Yeah, I really do. So yeah, I think it's that listening and curiosity, and it takes someone to be secure in yourself, to know, yeah, this is what I'm born to do. And when you have that clarity of outcome that you're trying to accomplish, not for your sake, but for the sake of others, it all starts to click. You can orient all of your decisions around that. And the security you feel in your own personhood, it's comforting. That makes sense.
Well, thank you, John. As usual, I don't know how quickly this time just goes when we're on here, and we've got a couple of minutes left. Shared some good tips with people, but what do you want to leave us with as we go into holidays and New Year?
Yeah, what I find myself playing with the most is around how can I create structures to even more quickly remind myself and get out of the loops of, like, get out of the emotion loop of yeah, just the pressure, feeling the pressure of it. Yeah, that's what I'm finding myself having to do. And especially, this year, recovering from surgery, went out in the mountain and sprained my ankle right away. I thought, really? Like, it makes sense because I'm not like conditioned to go out there again and do that. But really, so I find these challenges. Oh, Moise is a saint. Oh my gosh, he's so rad. Uh, mm, uh, it's like whatever structure in my, that's what I'm playing with, is the structures to remind myself of these things in different ways. So I'm going to make a big board, like a digital thing, and then use it as my computer's desktop. That's my next sort of thing I'm going to work on. And if that works, then I might try it with, roll it out to a 2.0 class and say, hey, here, let's try this thing. And then if that works, then we'll roll it out, maybe to a couple of the 1.0s. But that's what I'm playing with, is just whatever structures, reminders. Once you have your mission clearly in mind, how can you remind yourself of it on a regular basis that helps you tap into that emotion that you want, that you're at your best? That's what I would say. What about you, Raj?
Well, you made me think, because we're going to be working on our fresh vision board. But one of the things I discovered is sometimes, you know, as you grow and you learn more about yourself, things change. And, you know, what you might have thought was going to be your goal or you should be doing in 2022, maybe it's time to do some reflection on what you really want and what's most important. So I'm looking at how I surrender some of it and what it looks like. And I just want to let go and trust. I think trust in self. It's all going to work out the way it's meant to be. So I think just asking yourself that question, what do you really want?
I have one more thing.
Okay.
I'll play with, because I might talk about this in the future again. And this is something Amois was telling me about last week. She saw this on someone she follows shared a post about you know you're on the right path when your worries, your regrets, your losses, the pain, it feels more like clouds in the sky rather than muck, like that's like you have to work through. And one thing I'm going to be playing with is a visualization exercise, crafting a visualization exercise of taking whatever you feel might be close to you, might be hard to work through, and to literally visualize it like evaporating and being a cloud in the sky. And I think these kind of mental metaphor visualizations, they can help create a structure for the placing meaning on the other things that come into our lives. It's really, positive psychology talks about this a lot. Like the metaphor that we have for the mind, is it a computer or is it an elephant and a rider? Like, the metaphor we choose to adhere to make sense of our world helps inform the decisions that we make. That's a big deal. So I know I can keep going on this, but I know we have to stop. But that's the other thing I'm playing with, or going to be playing with in the next week. And I figured, that's a lot. Those two things are there.
Thank you, John.
This is fun, Raj. Oh, it's good to see you. Happy solstice too.
Look forward to seeing everyone in the new year.
They're launching the James Webb Telescope, so we can see even further in the stretches of the universe. This is an exciting time to be alive. So I think, yeah, I should stop. We keep going. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this time. It's good to be back and be back in the groove of this. I will see you next time with Ashley, right? So Raj is out next week, but it'll be me and Ashley
in the new year.
And we'll see you again, Raj.
Yep. See you all soon.
Bye.